There we go. All right, so let me share one more time. All right, WordPress news. Like I said, it's kind of a slow time of year. To be honest, there's a lot of WordPress drama that continues, but let's start the year positive. There's enough drama in the world. We don't need to dredge up. But I do think, as the year goes on, as Peter said, I do think we want to at least present some of that discussion as it unfolds, really as it relates to us, and maybe keep the personalities out of it and stuff. But anyway, we'll spare ourselves that for this month. The topic or a news item I did find interesting. I still get this among the many email newsletters I get. I still get one from Search Engine Journal, and there's a recent one that I saved because we talked about this when we talked about our SEO plugin deep dive a couple months ago. And there was an article. I'll put the link in afterwards into the chat. There's a recent article in there called "Google AI Overviews Claims More Pixel Height in SERPs." So if you recall from what we talked about in that previous meetup, I'm sure most of you have seen it. If you do a search now in Google, depending on the type of search, especially for information, you'll see that Google AI piece on the top. Well, what's interesting is this organization. I'm not sure exactly what they do. This Bright Edge. They've been tracking the size of that, and the SERP is search engine something something. I forget. I should look that up. But anyway, it's
Results
the
page.
results page. Thank you. It's that piece of what you see. Normally, it would be sometimes you see ads in there, you see organic mixed in, etc. But apparently, the results now of AI has been growing over time. So it's a really, I think, interesting article. We talked about this a bit in that discussion a few months ago. So again, if the trend continues, they're going to start taking over more and more space. So one thing this group found was it started like in May. So AI overviews started in May 2024, and originally they were taking up a 600 pixels of screen space. I assume that's desktop, not mobile. Um, but over time, by the end of the summer, they started to take over 800 pixels. So that's a pretty significant increase and continues to climb. So they're sort of projecting at some point it could reach 1,000. Obviously, it's not going to take over all of the search results because that would be a bad user experience, but it is slowly encroaching upon search results. Um, and I've noticed this too. Like when it rolled out last year, it was kind of a novelty. I would see, on occasion say, "Oh, look, there's the AI snippet." I've been noticing it. Maybe it's the type of searches I'm doing. I notice it more frequently too, and they're saying yes, the percentage of queries has been creeping up. So some areas in particular, health-related search queries, B2B, e-commerce, finance, et cetera, they're starting to show up a lot more in the AI overview. So, again, like what can you do? Probably not a lot, but it's just to be aware of this. Again, kind of go back to our presentation from a couple months ago about things you can do, things you can control. This is obviously something you can't control necessarily, but I do think it's something at least worth keeping an eye on, especially if you're dealing with clients, working on clients' website, and they start asking you, "Hey, how come my search results are going down?" Or, "Hey, how come, whatever, it's some SEO impact." Some of it is this. I think as people see these results on top, they may not go to the site. They may not go to the source. So I'll put a link to that in the chat. I just found that was kind of an interesting thing, and we'll watch that trend throughout the coming year.
Hey, Ray, on that topic.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I get curious about, when we hit a point where the whole SEO approach is completely different simply because you're not getting links to websites. Um, that is a really big deal. There's also some really interesting conversations going on around at what point does the AI pulling in of data run out of data that it can pull in and then starts pulling in AI generated data. So there's this really
Right.
inception kind of thing that's potentially there. And this is coming from somebody who uses AI a lot, but you do have to, just like anything, whether you're using AI or buying something on Amazon, you just have to be an educated consumer of this stuff. And so even when you get those results, there's plenty that I will look at that and it's useful right out of the gate, but others were like, okay, I'll go to the links that you're providing me too, because I want to make sure that you didn't, give me a double negative on something or whatever, just to
Right.
double check. So you do have to be pretty wise about some of this stuff.
I agree. It's another skill of being an internet user in 2025.
Definitely.
Tool and plugin spotlight. I don't know if you got anything for
I
us
do. I
here.
do. I want to. I'll share. This one's a little bit different. You can see my screen.
Yep.
So I want to talk a little bit about Blue Sky. I know we have some people on Blue Sky that are in this group. I know at least of one, maybe a couple. I'm curious if anybody's in Blue Sky and if you know what it is. But Blue Sky is a nicer alternative to X/Twitter. Sometimes I like to call it Twixter, just because you know that's who I am. But Blue Sky is a social media platform that has really focused on one, it's open source. Two, it's kind of in the federated, just like Mastodon tried to do, but where there's not any one owner moderator. And the best part about Blue Sky is you can control what comes in your feed. You can block. You can create lists to manage. What type of content you get. You can set up lists so you can focus on it. It's just nicer. It's not filled with ads. I guess I look at cats a lot because there's a lot of cat stuff in it. But it's a really good alternative, especially with everything that's been going on. And in fact, I mean, even Facebook now, we've got our Facebook group, but there are a lot of people who over the years have been dropping off, and there's reasons to. But here's another thing about Blue Sky that I like too, which is there are these things called starter packs, which you can create. And in fact, there's another guy who put it, which is like a nice list to get started on who to follow. So, you join Blue Sky, it's free, it's friendly and all, but when you get in there, you can you can start following people that you might know and all, but there's also some pretty nice WordPress groups. And in fact, oops, that's not subscribe. That's not what I want to do. Where's my search on this? Search right there. If I do a search for WordPress here, where am I at? Oh, I didn't go to. I'm sorry. I jumped in too quickly. There is the starter packs. I had to go to the right place. I was a little ahead of myself there. But this Blue Sky directory is a personal project of a person who is now gathering up a lot of these starter packs, because the starter packs are actually kind of personal and you can share them. You can say, hey, here are the people I follow. I'll create a starter pack and I can share it. This person has gathered them. So I'll end up sharing these links and putting them on the Hartford WP site. But from here, this is an actual search. There's a number of lists. A really good one is Nathan Wrigley, who, if anybody has followed, he's got a very popular podcast, and it is called WordPressers. It's somewhere here. But anyway, Nathan, this is where you can kind of just pull up a starter list and see the people on it and start following the different people, or just look at the posts of those people. So just experiment. If you're looking for something that was the way, it's Twitter like, but friendlier, safer, better sharing of things, better ways to manage what your experience is. I've been really liking Blue Sky as a place. A lot of, again, this idea, even in the starter packs and ways of following people. So I leave it at that. Other than I'm curious if anybody is on Blue Sky, and if you are, for those drop your Blue Sky profile. Like my profile is this one here.
I like it too so far. Yeah, I actually had one a while ago, then I sort of forgot about it.
Yeah,
My wife, I try to claim my name wherever I can on all the socials, even if I never use them.
yeah,
I do find the one thing about it, I know it's still growing, it's had a large growth thing, is I do find it a little bit, the tooling is a bit clunky or lacking right now, but I think
yeah,
that's something that they said they're working on. So it's a little like to create your own feed or do some filtering things. I know sometimes you have to use that offsite like website to create that kind of stuff. So
yeah.
it's not super user friendly right now for advanced things, but that's fine. I think like you said, I like the atmosphere of it right now.
Yeah, exactly. So I like
Cool.
it. It's been some of the people that we follow in the various like WordPress groups, live feeds, podcasts, things like that. There's been some pretty good content shared there. So
Awesome.
give it a
Excellent.
thumbs up.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, people are putting some of their handles in the
Oh,
chat
perfect.
as well. So all right. So tonight's topic, again, we don't really have slides anymore, but just to maybe set this up a little bit. As I said, Cadence, actually, let me share a little bit. I'll share this part of it. I'll close my blue sky. Oops. Hold on a second. There we go. So we've talked about Cadence quite a bit. Again, if you've been with our group or watched some of our previous meetups, as I said, a couple of years ago, we built a site from scratch using Cadence primarily. It was a fictional like animal shelter site. So that was probably, I'm thinking like 3 years ago, Peter, somewhere around there at least.
Yeah.
So it's been around for a while. And again, kudos as always to Peter for introducing me at least to Cadence. So the first I heard about it was through him. And I was fortunate enough to sign up when it first came out. So I have a lifetime deal for, that kind of thing. But even tonight, what we're going to show you though is we're going to talk about the blocks. So Cadence itself is both a theme and a set of blocks that you can use on any theme, or I'd say 99% of any themes or modern WordPress themes. So when we did that animal shelter, we used both together. And I do think that they work well together, but you don't have to use them together. In fact, my demos, now I'm showing my things, I'm going to use it on a plain vanilla 2025 theme, but with the Cadence blocks. So again, Cadence, and just to clarify, like I said earlier, we're not Cadence salespeople. We're not getting anything out of this. And Cadence isn't the only one of these kind of block themes that are out there, block packages, I should say, that are out there. The reason I think that we both like it is we've seen, at least I've seen the growth of it over the past few years and its commitment to the community. They do a lot of free stuff in terms of like, free webinar kind of educational things throughout the year. They really seem like a great addition to the WordPress community. So even if you're not using them, there's still things you can learn from them just from their free resources. So we're going to kind of today, because there's so much in the theme alone, we're going to separate that. We're not going to talk about the things in the theme. And at least for my stuff, and I think you're doing this as well, Peter, we're just going to talk about the free blocks that you get from Cadence. So Peter's going to cover, I forgot, you're going to cover the posts block, I think, right? The
I'm going to
advanced.
do a little bit of with the post block and kind of introduce folks to the header and navigation blocks, which are new.
Yeah.
And then we also said that if there are any blocks that people are interested in, I'll pull up a list at one point at the end and put it in the chat, and we can see if somebody says, "Oh, that sounds like that might solve something." But yeah, Ray, I think making that point, because people do get confused. They're like thinking Cadence does work as an entire environment with the theme, with the pro version plugin of the theme, with the blocks, with the pro version of the blocks, and then also within Cadence when you get the suite. If you were to decide, and now we're not putting up affiliate links or anything like that, there's some options. I also have to check. Pricing is changing on February 1st, by the way.
Yeah.
But there's WooCommerce packs. There's so many specific things in there. But yeah, we're primarily tonight we're talking about the free blocks plugin with a little, I'm going to mention a couple of things that are in pro that might, be of interest to folks.
And I'm showing here, so as Peter was saying, again, even though you can go to the Cadence, it's cadencewp.com is the site, the commercial site, we can both download the free version as well as the paid versions. If you search in the WordPress repository for Cadence it's the plugin, which we're going to be talking about tonight, you can see it there. It's called, slightly confusingly, Gutenberg Blocks with AI by Cadence WP. That's the thing that we're going to be showing. So just one last thing, I'll shut up before Peter jumps in and starts giving a bit of a demo. Some people ask, like, why would I want to add on additional blocks? I mean, we've done several, again, go back to our previous years worth of meetups. We've done several overviews of the core blocks in WordPress and the power of them. And I still stand by that the many times a a regular block that comes with WordPress for free is good enough for most use cases and things you want to do. But there are times where if you, especially if you find yourself you're not comfortable with CSS, kind of doing a little bit of technical stuff behind it, and let's say a block does 90% of what you want, but not the rest of it, you may want to explore some of these additional block packages like Kadence. So I think that's what we're trying to at least get across today is you don't need to throw away, core WordPress and suddenly switch to a page builder like Elementor or Divi or Beaver Builder. It may just be a matter of, hey, I need one or two more powerful blocks, and maybe something you can get from Kadence for free. So with that, I will shut up, and Peter, you can start
All
jumping
right.
to.
Yeah. So Ray, why don't I start with the post block, and then do you want to then do the row and section, and then I'll
Yeah, we can
do the
flip. Yeah, yeah. So I'm going to show the exact. So I'm going to do the structure ones. I'm going to show rows and columns, and then we'll go back to you, and then we'll go back to me
okay.
for advanced text and advanced buttons. So,
Very good. Very good. Okay. So I'll grab the screen. Are you seeing my screen?
yes.
Yes. Okay. Um, so I have a simple page that I started here, and what I'm going to first show is the post block. Then I'm going to give another little sneak peek of the pro version to show the advanced query loop, because that's kind of where they've gone. But the post block itself is really nice. So what the post block is a way of looking at your posts. It's similar. It's very similar to the query loop block. In fact, it came out quite a bit before the query loop block, so it was ahead of its time in that regard. The core WordPress core now has the query loop block, but the post block itself in Kadence is still it's easy and it's fast for setting up pages that are looking at your posts. Um, the the query loop advanced is in the pro version Kadence, which gets into even greater detail, especially when it gets into things like filtering and all, which is really handy because a lot of people end up investing in other filter plugins there. So just like any block, it's once you have the Kadence block plugin activated, you're going to see now when you go to insert blocks, you're going to see all the different Kadence blocks. They happen to color code them a type of blue. I don't know what blue this periwinkle, dark periwinkle. I don't know. And so there's a number of blocks here. I think I have Pro activated, but we're only going to start with the free version. So the one I'm showing you is posts, which is this block right here. So just like anything, you go to insert and click on it. I can go over here. I can hit posts, hit slash and look at the different options here. So there's the post one. So I'm going to select that. And what it's immediately dropped in, okay, you're looking at your posts and we're going to present them in this grid layout. All right. So now let's go to our list view just so that we can see is here. Remember, we use the list view a lot. The thing that's a little bit different about the post block versus like the query loops and the Kadence's query loop advanced is it really is self-contained. In other words, we're not really looking at sub things within it, but in the query loops and all, you'll see the query loop as sort of a wrapper around the content that's in it. The post block itself in the free version of Kadence, you manage everything that's in there through your options on the right. So it's pretty straightforward. You just kind of go down the list and you say, okay, yes, I want to show posts. How do you want to order them? Well, newest to oldest. How many items at one time? I'm going to say 6. That's always nice. Offset starting post is a neat kind of thing. If you're breaking up the design where maybe you have your first post as the big one up front, and then now below it you might have all your smaller. You see this all the time, on websites, blogs, news things where you have smaller blocks. but you might want to start at post number 2 in that list of newest to oldest or something like that. So that's where this offset comes in handy, depending on how you manage it in terms of a layout. Now, what we definitely want to look at is the filtering, filter by category, filter by tag. In this case, I'm going to filter by category, although it can be very handy. I use this sometimes. I'll just on a home page, I might drop a like a post block where I've got some stories that I want featured in this one section, and I'll tag them as featured. And then I'll filter this little post output to just say, show me the featured ones, which might not always be the very newest. Maybe it's, something that I might otherwise call a sticky or something that I want to show. So, just by tagging blocks, posts as putting the tag in when you go and you save your actual post, you could do things like, well, filter by that tag featured or whatever, homepage or whatever you choose to make that. In this case, I'm going to feature by category, and I do have some sample blog posts here, and I'm going to just grab all the attractive Connecticut ones. So there's Connecticut destination. I'll just put them all in outdoors, plants, and wildlife. So you can grab multiple categories to show, which is basically saying, exclude, or I'm saying include. I could have gone the opposite, and I could have said exclude what I'm listing up here, which may have been easier because there's I think the only other one is uncategorized right now. Then you get into, it's the include, showing unique, allow sticky posts, that something that's going to be at the front. Select the post taxonomy. I can't remember what that does differently than what I just showed you. Well, I think I'm just turning it on to make sure that that's what I'm doing. So I'm select the post taxonomy.
Use tags too. I think that's what that did, Peter. I think it opened up tags for you instead of
tags too. Right. So we're just gonna look at this, and if I preview that, one of the things that's kind of interesting is often in the preview here you don't see this because this is sort of dynamic content. So I just kind of wanted to give you that example. A lot of times you have to kind of save these. What's also interesting is then when you get into the style, and actually I go to advanced, I think, first, right? So this gets into the choices about what you want to show for each post. Do you want to enable the metadata, which are the, my name and all? You could just kind of group that and turn it all off. Or if you turn it on, you can decide which, of those. Maybe I don't want the author name, but I do want, the date, like when was that there. So all of these little elements, you basically can turn on or off, enabling the excerpt. If I take that excerpt off, you're not going to see it. If I turn on, so you can do these same things in the query loop that's in core, but each one of those things is a block that you're then either including or adding or taking out. In this precursor to all that, basically they're like, show it or don't show it. Just add that. You can read more. You can say continue, or what you could put in your own language there. So you have a lot of control over what shows up in here. So let me save that. And now when I go to preview it, or now look at it, now we'll see. Oh, I didn't apply the filtering. But I'm seeing 6. If I come back over here to, did I turn that off then?
You changed the taxonomy, I think, and didn't select.
Filter by.
It should be good now. Yeah, you selected taxonomy, but you actually didn't select something, so I think it wasn't.
There you go. You're right. Exactly. So now it's only giving me those results of the Connecticut destinations and things like that. Linking, it links right to the blog post. Just that quickly, you're creating the layout and a number of items. One that I always forget exactly where they put is how many images to show. You do have not images, but how many posts to show in columns. You can change the image ratio. Maybe that nice wide ratio looks good. Category settings. Oh, that is the link to the category. So you could have it be a little button pill. That's all that means there. So again, little design things that are simplified in here. Where is the number? Oh, you know what? This is no. Do you know what I'm talking about, Ray?
No, what are you looking for, Miss?
The number of columns.
It was at the, yeah, you had a number of items, isn't that it?
That's the
Oh,
total.
I'm sorry.
Whether I want two across, three across.
Um,
My notes here. Maybe not.
Peter, I think it's in the general tab.
so too, yeah.
Yeah. Post types, post, newest to oldest, number of
Scroll
items.
down.
Off.
Mm.
Oh, right here.
There you go.
This is, and I use this all the time, and that's closed. And that is again in the as we're showing our live things, those closed boxes will get you every time.
Yeah.
I don't feel bad about using that. Say I only wanted a column of one or two. If I have three, that looks good. And then what's also nice is that when you are back here, that if you're changing the size, that it'll automatically go down to two and then eventually to one. That's ultimately the post block. It allows you to. It's a neat, simple turn things on and off one block that does a query loop on your posts that you can filter, that you can set certain parameters, decide what you're going to show. Any questions on that?
I think it came out before the query loop, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like I think I did a quick search. Query loop blocks, at least the first documentation I see is from something in 2021.
Yeah.
I think this one came out before then, because I remember I was using this for such a long time. And even the query loop block, like you said, it's okay. It's gotten a lot better, but I do find it confusing sometimes, like especially like the metadata stuff. I don't understand the way they've configured that. So it's
and what's strange is because I use the if I in fact I can show it right here. If I use the pro version, I think I have it activated. Query loop advanced. So this is very similar. This is the pro version, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but this is where you can create something and you go through this process of saying, okay, but these little previews will show you can have filters where you click on your categories up top and it filters it makes things like, oh, you want to know only about destinations or wildlife or whatever. And a lot of this has to do with how advanced those filters get, whether on the left, the right. There are a lot of plugins and a lot of paid plugins that do this.
yeah, I remember working with clients who have to buy them to get that kind of functionality, and
exactly.
It's the block.
You have to buy this because it's in pro, but you get a heck of a lot more with it too. But that's just another example where now you would build this. And in this case, when you say we wanted to put this in, create that, and then you'd go through the whole creating now the card similar to the query loop, where now you're putting things in that card. So put the title, put the image, things like that. So the post is a nice, quick. It's going to take care of a lot of what bloggers are going to want to do and manage it. Whereas the advanced gives you a lot more in terms of filtering and things like that.
Gene has a question, but before you get to Gene, just before I forget, so Peter, I think I could be wrong, because I think we did this on the animal shelter one. I think the free version of the post block also supports custom post types, right? Because I think we used it for the cats.
It does.
Even though it says posts, it's really select your post type. This one he likes posts and pages, but if you had a custom post type there, it's pretty amazing. I'm pretty sure the free version even lets you work with them too, so that's great.
Yeah, no, it definitely does, because we did use it for that. Once you created a custom post type, that would just be like we had pets, and that was just added to this list of which post type would you like to have.
Go ahead, Gene.
I was just wondering, could you click on your Sturbridge post? Because you did it really, really quickly and it looked really cool. And I just wanted to ask you how you have the overlap there. Is that something you did, or is it in
He's using the
Cadence
Cadence
Blocks?
theme.
Yeah, I'll show in the customizer. So this is the Cadence theme now.
Okay.
And in the customizer under post page layout, I think, right? Single post layout. And then you have one of these choices, right?
You can do it the page setting too.
Yeah,
So
like
if
behind, like if I did this.
yeah, so that'll apply to all of them. You can also do add an individual blog page
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
But you have to have the theme to do this? You have to use a
Yeah.
Cadence theme?
The
Okay.
free one.
Yeah.
The free, all you need is the free
Oh,
one.
the free one?
Yeah.
I like free.
Yeah.
But
Do
yeah, no,
starter packs come in the free version of Cadence? If you
They
get the Cadence theme, do you get starter packs, or is that a pro thing?
A separate
No,
plugin, but it's free. There's a free version of it. We weren't going to show that today.
yeah, but no, you're right. So I mean, well, just because I want to, if we go into plugins and yeah, if you go to the various ones like Ray was showing, the starter templates are part of free, and you get into you even do get like kind of that AI driven where you're pre-filling some of the content. It's kind of stunning what you can do with this plugin. And then there's features you'll have it start. Some of the starter templates will say, okay, you can do this, but with Pro.
Yeah.
So clearly everything's sort of an entree to go full, but there's so much you can do with just the free. You would just be choosing in your one of your starter templates to say, you know, well, I just only show me the free ones. But yeah, that is a plugin that works with the Cadence theme and generally and will require Cadence blocks. Do you now I'm thinking, do you have to have the using the Cadence theme and then
I think you do.
it'll say this is where it does become kind of like Cadence theme and Cadence block working together, which of course they would do, and the templates kind of create whole websites. But we always want to reiterate the fact that Cadence blocks can be used on any website. They are button blocks.
Which is maybe a good segue. Do you have another one? Do you want me to jump in with the? All right, good segue. So I'm going to show some Cadence blocks with the generic I think of 2025 theme. Yeah, so this is the plain old 2025 theme. That's my active theme. And so I'm going to show I kind of prepped this ahead of time so we can dive into more of the details of this. I'm going to show what I kind of call the structure blocks. So if you recall, I think we went into a pretty deep dive of this a couple months ago or so about the blocks that come with WordPress, specifically like the columns, rows. So just to show you again, they're all kind of in this section, the design section. So I think Peter and I went through and showed columns, groups, rows, stacks, et cetera, et cetera. So what I'm going to demonstrate here is there's equivalent versions of those from Cadence, and in fact, there's differences between them. So in certain cases, you may need something additional beyond what the basic ones give you. So I'll kind of go through that a little bit. So let's talk first about. So I created this just ahead of time. So this thing is a regular WordPress block. It's 2 columns. First column has just a bunch of text. Second column has an image, just this kind of random image here. And the only styling, so the WordPress styling for columns is pretty basic. I mean, you're able to control a little bit of the number of columns. I think the maximum is 6, if I remember. Yeah, it's maximum is 6 of this. You can stack them on mobile, which just means that they're going to collapse on each other. You don't get real control how they stack. We'll talk about that in Cadence, allows you to do in a second. And then in terms of styling at the columns level, so this is the parent item level, you can use, if your theme supports it, so that this is the 2025 theme, which has that style book and all that. So I can change the styles a bit, if my theme has these and offers them. I can change some color of the text in the background, some typography, and they've been adding more stuff. As those of you who've been attending our sessions and who've been playing with Gutenberg / the block editor, it has improved. I mean, every every year, I'd say, sometimes it's slowly, but every year I'd say they've added more and more styling controls to it. So it's getting a lot better, definitely getting a lot better. But you're still quite limited, I'd say, in terms of control. Like, for example, one thing I'll show you in a second is, the size of the columns. I don't have a lot of control here. Once I add 2, that means it's basically 50%, 50%. If I know CSS, which I do, I mean, I obviously could change that, but just from using the block editor itself, this will make it 33 evens. I can't make something wacky, 25, 75, etc. So the Kadence equivalent of columns is the row layout. So there is no individual columns block, which I'll talk about rows in a second. To me, that makes more sense. Like, it's just, I think of an Excel spreadsheet, right? You either have one column, 50, whatever, one row, 100 rows. They're not separate things to me. They're interjoined. So the Kadence block, like I said, is called the row layout here. What's nice too, I won't show this. Maybe I'll show you a quick example. This is just like we were talking about those pre-made templates, the AI starter packs. When you create a layout, and this is even in the free version too, you can start by going into this design library. I kind of won't go through all this, but again, this is the free version. It'll tell you a lot of stuff is premium or not. But let's say, just for brainstorming, that's where I find some of the stuff is good. Let's say I know I want like a hero image. I'm like, oh yeah, this is kind of what I want, right? And again, in the block editor, we have those patterns. You can go to the pattern repository and find things. But this is kind of nice in terms of they've been styled, kind of clean. It seems to me a lot of these, like I said, you can tell a designer was behind some of these. And they've added to this quite a bit over time too. So it gives you a starting point if you're drawing a blank, say, what do I want this thing to look like? And then you can go in here and swap out text, swap out content, et cetera, et cetera. So that's, I won't show that, but that's another nice thing, these kind of pre-built layouts, and that's in the row layout. But just to stick with a simple example right now, let's say I'm trying to replicate this layout with columns. I'm sorry, with Kadence. So Kadence, the equivalent of a column is a section. Again, it's just their terminology for it. But otherwise, everything's basically the same. So a section is another container, and you can put anything you want in it. You can put sections inside of sections, buttons in there, and then sections, and far down as you want to go. As far as I know, there's no limit, although obviously just reasonably, I think you do want to have a limit of how much you want to do here. And then the image as well, you just drop this in here. But here's some of the differences. Now, it's like, okay, it all looks kind of the same. One thing, before I forget, one thing I did want to point out, so I've added a border to both of these, really to make this apparent. And for anyone who's used like page builders, one thing that, again, this Kadence is not a page builder, but one thing that page builders do that kind of drives people crazy sometimes is they'll add hidden padding and formatting stuff that may not be apparent to you. So in this case, because I've added a border, you can tell like I've basically done the same thing. I've added an image and text. But this guy, when you look at it, wait a minute, the image has a little bit of space underneath it. Why? It's because Kadence added, I forget where it is, it's in the advanced. I think I even tried removing it. It's adding padding sometimes. So, if you didn't have the border here, you probably wouldn't notice it. Probably looks fine, but just something to be aware of sometimes. It's not some of these things you drop in and they're giving you some sort of guidance in a sense, saying, well, you probably want some spacing around it. So that's something to be aware of for any of these, some of these block packages. But anyway, so the things that you get out of this, I'll probably stick to some more important things. From the row layout standpoint, as I said, one nice thing is right here, I can decide, you can see I put my cursor here, I can switch it from 50-50, I can make it whatever number makes sense to me. I can drag it back and forth. I can also change on the fly here to say 63-33. So it's just a lot quicker to change and you can get a lot more ideas out of the structure of this than just, a straight division of columns. One of the other things, let me show you, is the mobile. So I think it's under, so both of them have the selecting background image, background colors. I believe the columns has it as well, but where is it under advanced? Advanced block structure layout. This is one of those two that, just like Peter was saying, every time I forget where is that setting? Is it under? advanced structure settings.
Which one are you looking for?
I'm looking for the mobile collapse visibility. Where did you go?
Change it to mobile view.
Yeah, the little icons.
I thought it did it here
Now
though.
you got to change it
Yeah.
to mobile first.
Oh,
Yeah.
collapse order. Oh no, that's another one too. That's just where you want it to go to. Styling.
So it's a really good point to jump in here while you're doing that, Ray, which is another thing that we like about the Kadence theme, which is this isn't about, is how helpful it is when you're looking at phones and tablets and the formatting and how quickly you can see how something works and how you might want to modify it and all. So that's always a very
It
welcome.
actually, thanks for stalling. It actually wasn't at the row level. It was at the section level, which is kind of funny because that makes more sense. Because let's say I had 3 of these.
Yes.
You can say that, column 1, 2, and 3 on mobile, I want them to go 2, 1, 3 for whatever reason. Maybe one's a button and one's text. So for that, I'm sorry. So I have to click on the section, and then in here I can set the mobile collapse order to be whatever I want it to be. So that's
Yeah. I'm going to jump in
that's-
again here because I run into this all the time. Why the list view is open, and while very often you're trying to change something where you need to go to the thing it's in because
the
that's
child or the parent. It's sometimes, yeah, if you don't find it one, go to the other. I should have known better. I swear I felt this the other day.
yeah.
But so I won't go through all of these because again, you'll see this pattern. As a matter of fact, this whole styling and advanced thing is pretty consistent across many of the Kadence blocks. I don't recall the post one. Maybe post one's a little bit different, but especially the structure one. So I'll spend a little bit of time looking at it now. But if you have a question about any particular styling thing, we can jump back to this later. But I like that too. So once you get familiar with, oh, I can set backgrounds here, I can do this. You can do it pretty much on all of them. Like these things look very, very similar. So again, in many cases, the WordPress one is fine if you have something basic, but once you start getting a little bit more advanced, like I said, that's where you want to look at maybe something like the Kadence one. I'll go kind of quick on these other two because the rows one I always just find a little bit strange so this is the generic WordPress row block. So a WordPress row block is basically a 1 column, but it has a particular flow by default. It's flowing left to right. You can make it flow top to bottom, vertically instead. But there is no equivalent row block in Kadence, which to me makes more sense. Kadence just has a row. A row has one column or not, but you can still do the same thing. So a 1 column row is basically one section. You can do the same. I can have my flow going. It actually has more. I guess I can do left to right, right to left, top to bottom, bottom to top. So just whenever you need to do something like that, you can have additional control over it. And then maybe finally-ish, the other structure block that's similar that Kadence provides is to the group block. So we've shown this quite a bit. A group block is a handy container in WordPress, in the WordPress block editor. So think of it as a container. You can put almost anything inside of a group block. Why would you want to do that? It's so that you can either style things as a group. Sometimes just easier to you can put anchors at a group level. So if you want to hyperlink down to something, it lets you work on separate things as if they're together in a group. So in this case, I just created a real basic one in WordPress. This is the core WordPress block. It's got some text, it has some buttons. The group itself. So WordPress, what kind of styles does it give you at the group level? You can use your theme styles. I have a background image, so it's probably not doing, it's changing the button. That's what it's doing there. I can control some basic things like the color. I think they just added background image not too long ago. This is literally, it took a couple of years to get this, the ability to put in a background image and some basic control. So they're starting to give you more in the regular WordPress core blocks. But just to compare that to the section block in Kadence. Again, this is part of the free one. You can do all the same things. It can contain basically anything. So it has a paragraph, it has buttons, and these are just the regular WordPress paragraph and button blocks. But once again, once it's in a Kadence section, now I can do all these additional things. So I can say, I want to change, I can reverse the order of the elements. I can change alignment. I can, do a lot more stuff with gaps. Styling wise, yes, I can put a background image. I can also change, I believe in the WordPress one, I can change this as well too. I can change my focal point here. I can, do gradients in here, just a lot more options. And the Pro one even gives you more. I haven't done this, a backdrop filter, whatever that is. And then hover and mobile. So that's one thing in particular, I would say, even in certain cases where maybe functionality wise, you're like, well, I don't need all that stuff. To me, one of the keys that I think Kadence gives you is the mobile control, much, much better than the core blocks. So just for an example, I think maybe this one. So if I look at this and I'm switching over to mobile, this is just the WordPress one. I don't really have any different styling options here. Like if I apply this text color or whatever, that's going to apply across the board. So if I'm saying, oh, okay, on mobile, let's say I want this thing to be small or whatever. I think I get the wrong one selected. Let me select the paragraph. So it's not going to allow me to change at a granular level like here when I go to Kadence and I look at, I'm already in that style. But any of the settings that I set back, let me flip back to desktop. You'll see quite often, you'll see the little icon here to say, maybe on desktop, I want the direction flow to be, vertical, but on mobile, I want the direction flow, for whatever reason, to be left to right or something, or top to bottom, up and down. So it's much more, the mobile controls are much more granular on the Kadence blocks than they are in the core blocks. And that alone, I think, is a huge advantage. I'll stop with the structure blocks. Is that anything else, Peter, you can think of to add to?
Well, we did have Sue asked a question, and
Sure.
my answer was, I think so, but I can't remember, which is, can we, under advanced structure, can we make both columns equal height? In other words, if you've got multiple columns, is there a set to same height? And I say yes.
See, that would be under a row layout. Can you change? I think it is under structure settings. Yeah, minimum height here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's say I want, in this case, it's the border is kind of making it look a little goofy here, but yes, you can say that both of them are going to be a particular minimum height.
I don't know if it expands them all though, that used to be something everybody wanted. That was always a real pain.
Yeah, and this one's a little bit tough because I have an image in here, so the image height is going to only be so much unless I change the image to. I'm using the regular WordPress.
Wait, go back where you were. Go back. Go click on the row and go back to advanced structure.
Yeah.
Underneath what you just moved, do you see where it says inner columns 100%?
Yeah.
That's going to make the two columns equal height. I just
100%.
wasn't sure it came in the free version.
Exactly. Yeah. I knew that there was so basically inside 100% within that row. Yeah.
I had the wrong one selected. I was trying to make my changes. I don't see it. It's because I was on the wrong thing selected. Yeah. So that's a huge one too. And also, again, the ability to put elements at different, positioning of things. To me, that's a huge thing. That sometimes that's the one thing you want to do, and it drives you nuts. And rather than having to write some CSS to do it, it's like there's probably a styling option here that lets you do that. So
yeah, there was always a thing with when you have sections next to each other, columns, and you have variable length content within that, but you want all the buttons that might be the go-to buttons to line up at the bottom. That has always been a thing. Well, how do I do, and CSS, stick it to the bottom and things like that. That's all gotten easier. Not that I can tell you how to do it right off the top of my head, but whether it's, that might be, now we do a lot of nesting of things too, right? So fill it in, make it a minimum height, stick it to the bottom, a lot of things like that.
Right. And Sue brought up the point too, but yes, in the advanced, let me just show this again too.
Yeah.
Oh, do I? I'll show them the next one later. I'll skip the thing about the font thing. But yes, in most of these too, because I like the fact that this is consistent. In the advanced, you have the ability to both add custom CSS in here, which is a really nice view too. I really like this as well. Trying to write CSS in these tiny boxes, like in custom editor, drives you crazy. So That's really neat. Yeah, again, yes, you can set visibility settings, you can set HTML anchors in here, et cetera, et cetera. So there's just a lot of cool styling things that you pick up just by the fact that it's a cadence block. So almost all not all, but many cadence blocks happen to pick up all of these kind of styling features for free. So that's another nice thing. All right, so hand it back to you, Peter, and then when it comes back to me, I'll show advanced text and
Okay.
advanced buttons.
You got it. All righty. So I was just checking something over here. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Not yet.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, good. So if you're all familiar with, or if not, I will give you a little behind the scenes. We actually just saw a little bit of it on when we were looking at the customizer for Kadence. So in the Kadence theme, again, not something we're featuring, but here's a good example of the evolution of something. In the customizer, and I'm looking at our live Hartford WordPress site. Always a great idea to go into and tweak live sites. But if you look at under the customizer, you have the header and the footer, and they both have this builder. Now I clicked on header, and then I've got these sections here where I can add different blocks. So you can see in our site, the top left, we were only using, there's 3 rows that you can use in your header. You've got left, middle, right, and then you can align things left or right, drop things in the middle. So what we're doing on this site is we've got the logo on the left, and then we're right aligning this a social menu block, and these are just blocks, and then the primary navigation, which is a function of I say they're just blocks. That's actually not correct. What we're going to show you is going to be just blocks. These are header builder tools, but where you can then go in and I can look at in my primary navigation and what menu am I using and things like that. So this is in the Kadence theme, right? It's something we've been used to for quite a while, a real handy way of building out. You could do some pretty neat things with menus. I can have at the top like the phone number and whatever I want. They can put into these different sections. What has very recently been done is decoupling that and putting it into a block and taking navigation and putting it into a block. The reason although I don't know if this was overtly said, is that one of the things that's happening with the Kadence theme is that it is moving towards full site editing, and whether it goes hybrid and what happens over time is yet to be determined, but they've been very carefully managing that. One of the benefits of that though is they have developed, and I say they, we know, like Ben Rittner is the guy who's doing a lot of the work. He's got some developers that work with him. Sue actually knows a lot more about the structure of the organization, just from what we know. They have great podcasts out, and you can kind of see the people who are doing the work. But what they've done is they've decoupled this and put it into a block. The beauty of that is you can use a similar kind of tool to add navigation and headers to themes that are block themes that use the full site editing, but now you have more capability because of the robustness of this tool. So I'm going to show you a quick overview because you can spend a heck of a lot of time in there, looking at all the different options. So I'm going to start by just showing you how some of the pre-made templates that you can use to start this whole thing. But where it's immediately interesting in WordPress, there's a million ways to do the same thing. If I were to look at under Kadence is loaded, and now when you have Kadence blocks active, and this is the free version, You get a Kadence menu where you have different settings and all. But what you now have, and another thing, if we've got time, we can even talk about the forums, which is now amazing that there's an advanced forums. But you have headers and you have navigation. Navigation typically working within headers, although it is a block that you can put anywhere. So maybe you want to put it in a sidebar or do some things with sub menus and things like that. A lot of things you can experiment with that. But you can create headers here by just saying add new Kadence header, or you can edit, what you've got. Or if you are, in a page, you can go to the inserter, or I can go to slash header advanced, and then I can start the process of building the header. In this case, it wants to jump to navigation. So sometimes I like to work a little bit differently there. But here's an example of now where I think I loaded something accidentally that was already there, but we'll just jump right into it. So there is this block now is showing contents that goes into a header, and you can see that you have the builder that you saw in the Kadence theme now available as a way of building content within the as a block. And you have this builder, and you can use this builder or you cannot use this builder. You can go right to the content, because once we're in adding a menu, adding a header, in that header are blocks and sections. Now, one of the things that happens if you're kind of looking just closely when you go to add one, and I'll add one kind of from scratch, is you can see that there's a lot of sections that are locked, because in effect these are predefined patterns that use the builder. So we've got these locked sections, but as you put content in it, you will now see blocks that land in their particular sections. So that's what we're going to do here. Is when you look at this content, you can this while it's on a page is a header that is going to be saved in my list of headers. It's kind of a custom post type, if for folks that are familiar with that, where now you're creating this header. You could do it on a page, you could do it in a header, you could do it in as that post type itself. Gets a little confusing because you can do the same thing in multiple places, but ultimately it saves as a header that may have navigation that's saved as navigation that you can edit, that then you could place that somewhere. And with full site editing, you could place that in the header. I don't want to use the same things, but in the header section, where you might have your navigation and title already from a theme. Well, now you can use the robustness that comes with Kadence and Kadence Blocks, and you can put any block you want in there. You could do all kinds of things, but where you get into some real power is when you're working on this, and if you notice here, you've got the visual builder that will turn that section back on. You could, drag and drop. If I wanted the title at the top and I wanted, my buttons below it, you can drag and drop these little areas that are calling upon things to wherever you want in the site. And when you go into an area, if you click the plus sign, again, you're adding blocks. If I wanted to add text to the top right that for whatever reason I might want to say welcome, which I don't, but I'm going to do it anyway. That's going to go into this whole section here now is the header, including that welcome. But maybe I said, I meant to put it over there. I'm using that visual builder to build a header that I can then place on my website, typically in the header of the site. You can build multiple headers.
Sorry to interrupt. Do they also give you a set of blocks that are specific to the header, like the site identity? Because I'm thinking like the way the old one.
Yes.
The old one works. So I guess the full site editing kind of does that too. Are there certain blocks that like
the primary ones, Ray, are site identity and navigation?
Okay.
Because after that, like the buttons and the text and the social, those are blocks that you can put anywhere.
Right.
So those are the two primary ones that you're adding that are header specific. But of course, you can use those blocks, and you can put the site identity block in the middle of your page if you want. The site identity, for example, is a block, and now when I'm looking at my block options, just like any other block, I can do different styling. I can say, do I want to link it to the homepage? Yeah. Do I want to show the title? Turn that on and off. Do I want to show the tagline? I don't know if I have a tagline. It's just that kind of thing. I can turn that on and off. Since in this case, I put the title as part of this logo, I'm only showing the logo. But that is the site identity block as it shows here. Yeah, you could put any block you want there. If I wanted to put a big icon here, I can add an icon block, which is a Kadence block. None of these are good examples of what you would do, other than the fact that you could say, I've got all these sections where if I wanted to add blocks and build out my header. What gets really handy is then you get into the tablet, mobile, and then the off canvas menu where you can edit what you want when you're on your phone and all. This goes above and beyond what now you can do in WordPress core. A lot of the unhappiness with using full site editing and the header, unless the theme is giving you a whole lot of things and why you might have a theme, there's some challenges with mobile, responsive mobile navigation and all. Whereas with this tool, you've got complete control over how everything looks. Maybe, are you using an off canvas trigger, or you could put your menu on your tablet, that type of thing. So there's a lot of options for controlling what you see. And let me show you, let me get out of this. I'm going to go back to the desktop. And you can see it keeps saying to me, hey, you've got a menu, but you haven't selected, you don't have a menu that works. I think when I was experimenting. So I'll just say, let's just put some links in our menu. So I'm going to add those to menu. This is kind of familiar to WordPress core, but this is actually how you manage the navigation block, which lives inside of the header. And you can deal with that separately too. And now I can drag and drop these, kind of like what you can do in the normal WordPress. But if you're using full site editing, that may or not be an option for you. If I were to say, okay, about, I want at the top, and then some of these particular topics, done editing, and now see that menu is going to be there, and I can go back into this. I can edit it. And one of the things to remember too is when you're here, if I go to edit, there is the open the navigation builder. This is similar to the show or don't show this builder. If I hit open navigation builder, it comes back to here. And now again, you can go in here and say, well, I don't want to say about, even though the page says about this site, I want it to say about, and contact us. Maybe I just want it to be the word contact. So what I'm doing here is it's a slightly different version of what you might normally see from core, but see, now I've changed that menu. Now, if I save this, it's going to do kind of that thing that you see a lot of times with full site editing and saying, hey, you're on a page. You're going to save the page called header experiments, but you're also going to save the header that you just tweaked and the navigation that's in it, because those are actually different things. I'm going to save this. But what's kind of interesting here is I can go back into my under Kadence and under navigation and under headers, And I can see the things 656. I think I'm not sure if that's the one I had. I should have checked the name of it.
Hey, Peter, maybe I missed it. Sorry, because I know you're doing the navigation with the header, but where did you assign this header to any page or pages? Did that?
Technically, I haven't done that yet.
Okay.
Right. So right now I'm just building the block.
Right.
So the way you assign it is this. First thing is, as weird as this one looks, and this is our new Meetup header that I was editing, right? Let me just save that to make sure. Here's where it gets interesting. If you happen to be using the Kadence theme, which in this case we are, and I'm using this. If I go into the customizer, and then I go to header, at the bottom choice is a new option called Enable Block Header. And when I do that, it swaps out everything in the builder, and now you go into what you've built in that. And now I've got that wacky welcome experience in WordPress one that we were just tweaking.
Is it doing it for the entire site, or can you assign it to specific pages?
We're still in the Kadence world right now, and then I'll talk about the other stuff.
Okay.
In Kadence, you are doing one of two things. If you're using Kadence, the free version of the theme, you can do this, and just like in the customizer, it's for every page.
Okay.
And it'll work just like what you've built if you use the regular builder. Meaning, where I was showing before, customize, and then you go in and you've got all those boxes now. I've now swapped out a header that I created, and I'm saying now I can use all the different ones I've created. But in the free version, it's going to say, okay, you're just putting whatever your header is. You're making your site header. If you were to get the pro version of Kadence themes, now you can use elements.
Okay.
Disconnect the header, and you can build different header elements, and then you can conditionally place them. So
Okay.
that's how you would do it. Now, what's different is, this is where it gets kind of interesting, and I'll come back to the building because I didn't really show some of the sampling thing, but let's do something crazy. So I'm just going to get out of it. I'm not going to save that, but I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to go to my dashboard, and I'm going to go to appearance, themes, and I'm going to change the theme to a block theme. And it doesn't matter which one. We can pick, we'll pick the good old 2025. And I'm going to activate that. So now if I go to that same site and I look at it, now I've got kind of this, whatever the 2025 is giving me out of the box, right? If I go to edit this page, and I go to, actually, I want to go to not edit the page, but edit the site. And you can do this with backend, and the people are really good at full site editing, and Ray, you've got much better than I have. We've got our section, we've got our header, our footer, and then the content in between. So if I go to the header here, which is, in effect, a bunch of blocks, as shown here, a group block. If I go here and now, say before that, because I can get rid of it, and if I go to add before, and now I go to the navigation, the header advanced block. See, now I can either create new, go through the process, or I can pick the one that I made. And now, if I want to risk it, I'll go here and I'll delete this. And if I save this, and now I do the site, I have that header that I created in Kadence with Kadence Blocks using the Kadence header builder, and I'm using that whole block in the header of a full site editing theme, in this case 2025. And I love that. I just think that is jazzy, and I can still go into the back end here. If I go to back to Kadence, which again, the blocks are active, it's not theme related, it's blocks related. I go to headers, I go to my new Meetup header. I can still I can change this all I want. I go here and I'm going to open the visual builder, and maybe I want now this section, my welcome, right at the top. And then I'm gonna if I come here, I think now you can do all this styling. I can come here and make sure that I'm on. Well, I got to go see. This is where I'm not on the access. I'm going to the navigation top level, where now I can style it, and I can go to typography, and I can make it a different size if I wanted it small or medium, or put in a number there. Let's put in 20. Oops, no, that's line height. That was the wrong thing to do. 20 there. Oh, it is 20. Okay. 17. And now I save that. Again, it's saying, okay, you're going to save your header. I'm going to save it. And now I come back to the front end. I should see welcome move over to the center and the font size here reduce, which I'm really happy it worked the way we.
I think so you missed. So Gerald had a comment in the chat about, so like if you're using just the regular, let's say full site editor, that whole structure of what you created as the header, you could do that using just regular blocks and create a pattern and have like a synced pattern, something like that. I think the thing though that at least what I got out of this is, first off, you get the cadence, all the goodness that we showed about like the styling and all those setting things, but it's also that builder really allows you to kind of focus on a very specific pattern. This isn't just any old pattern. It's like, here's a typical header pattern. So it kind of, I think it gives you more, at least for me, it gives me a little bit more structure about how I should construct a header, as opposed to just throwing things willy-nilly all over the place,
Yeah. Oh no, it does. And that builder, you could not use that builder at all and go straight with blocks and all. What's nice about the builder is it basically gives you a grid where everything lives in. And it's also pre-configured so that when you're doing things like I just, went to a different size, and now I've got my pull-in menu, and the builder allows you to modify this menu and change the colors and change the spacing and change everything. And where it gets really something, and we absolutely are not going to go into this, and if anyone has questions and want to see kind of the different kind of out of the box template kinds of things in terms of starter points and where it puts things, where it gets really great is if you get, yes, the pro version, but if you get the pro version of Kadence Blocks, now you can build these things out into some pretty amazing mega menus. I don't use mega menus a lot, and anyone who doesn't know what a mega menu is, it might be like you click on accessibility, or you hover over it, and then the whole box opens. It has all the sub menus and maybe images, maybe any kind of content that you want. And that is the next level of kind of developing it. To me, it starts really bridging the gap of what we kind of went, to be honest with you, backwards with full site editing, in how simple headers became. And now goes back to adding more styling and all. And I think we're going to see more styling. The menus, there's a choice where click on the underlining and how that works, and the hover colors, and all of that ends up being in the blocks here, where when you're looking at the navigation block and you want to configure that navigation block, you've got all the styles and the fonts and sub menu styles. My menu doesn't have any sub menus, but you could certainly do sub menus and all. It gives, well, for me, a comfortable environment, because I know the Kadence customizer. If you're using the Kadence theme, which is a classic theme, it's a theme that uses the customizer versus the blocks. But now this again decouples that. You could create a whole bunch. Here's something you could do with clients, for example. You can create a page of a number of variations of the. I should be able to just. I don't know if you can copy it. And then I want to close the builder. Hide that. I got to remember where that is. And then I should be able to. Oh no, I'm in the block editor place. If I was on the page editing the page where I was, let me hide that. I should be able to say, version 2. And then I should be able to take this and I should be able to duplicate it. And now move that like a block. Oops. I don't know why that was. But anyway, what I should be able to do is create a page of headers, go to a client and say, which one do you like the best? If you wanted to give, 3 options, and now make it live by just literally going to your site header and saying, that's the header block that I want to use. It's a whole lot to show in a short amount of time. The bottom line is we are building out headers as in effect, right, a block pattern that understands what is responsive, right? So as you have different layouts that will show up depending on what device you're on, that you can bring in attach navigation, and you can have multiple navigations that you're using. The navigation is things that you can edit by just dealing with the blocks, or again, if you wanted to go to the that navigation builder, which gives you an experience a little bit more like core. But you don't, again, you don't, maybe to a fault, you have the option. I could also come over here and say, move this over there, right? By clicking my normal move buttons. You're working with blocks, but then you're also working within that builder that says, okay, this is how we're working in the navigation. Put your submenus here, drag and drop like you're used to doing, and then we have a menu that you can use within a header layout.
Peter, so even though they call it headers in the block, headers, do they have anything for footers, or can you use a header as a footer? Because the only difference between a header and footer is the placement of the thing on a page.
Yeah, no, you're right. And let's take a quick look.
Go to your appearance. If you switch it back to just the Kadence one, I'm wondering, can you drop that header into your footer?
Exactly. I was curious if I could go to
20. Well, I think the block. I think full site editing will, because it doesn't really. I think because it doesn't know the difference between what that thing is. But
full site definitely. But let's see over here if I have.
No, it's not in there.
Yeah, I don't have that.
Maybe that's part of Pro.
Yeah, that might be. The other thing is you probably could, if you just made one of these, made it full width, and then put
that's true. Smoosh it in.
Yeah.
That was a hack.
Because they're blocks,
yeah.
Where that accepts the block, it will work.
I think, again, not that I'm bashing on full site editing, but I think one of the reasons people haven't adopted full site editing so much, first off, it's better now than it was 2 years ago. But some of us who've been using things like Kadence, I think we've had that great header building experience for years. I'm like, why do I want to give this up to go to full site editing? Because it's clunky and it's not there yet. So to me, in some ways, this is a nice bridge to get maybe people to use a full site editing theme and not lose the benefits of like what you got from using the Kadence theme. So I think it's really neat. I've never seen this before.
Yeah. If I were to create this is now saying, okay, you've created one. So here's another nice thing. If you create a bunch and you want to edit, you're adding it to a place, you get a preview of what you created. See, this is our welcome, the one that we just did. If I went to create a new one, new, go to next. And now here's where we've got kind of different out of the box templates. And all this does is create that builder and puts the site identity block, the navigation, and in this case, a couple of buttons like call to action buttons in places there. And as you can scroll down and say, oh, I want a centered logo with the menu. So and an action button. I want, I want a drop down, and again, you can have different navigation for that and something. So these are the out of the box versions. And then once you pick that, you then can pick, then you go through your mobile layout, which might be different. So if I pick this one, and now I'm on mobile layout, and okay, do I want the logo and all? And for me, like I might have used one of these, but now I'm going to take the logo. Let's say it's built under my mobile, but I want the logo for mobile to be front and center, and then maybe I want that to go across, and then I want one call to action thing in this area and all. So, it's kind of that, once you get used to it, it's kind of that quick. The off canvas menu that you pull in, and having the control over that, you can make it go full width. You can change the padding and all, so it works best with your branding, your colors, things like that. Fantastic. It's all, even the options slide in from the left, slide in from the right. Do you want to go full length, full width, or partial width? These are all options for this particular off canvas block, which sits inside of the header using the navigation that you've chosen. And I think you can even select different navigation if there was a reason to, which there might be on your mobile device. The fact that I can put on this, I could put a big button across the bottom, because again, I could just add another block into this canvas area. So it's
the mobile stuff is another, like I'm looking, whenever you're done, Peter, I can grab the screen back. But you finished with this one, or?
Yeah. I'll
let me grab, just I'm sort of going to piggyback on that, and then I'll go into mine. So this is a full site. So this is the full site editing one I'm looking at. I'm just looking at the header template built into the 2025 theme. And like you said, I think it's gotten better, but in some ways, this is still, they give you a blank canvas. Let me go back to even where I started from. So I said, oh, here's the three header templates that come with the theme. I mean, a vertical header.
Yeah.
Why?
As
Really?
defined by the theme.
Like I don't know. So these are the three samples they give you. One is, to me, is just ridiculous, but whatever. That one's with a large title, and then here's a regular header. But once you're at this point, this is kind of goes to Gerald's thing. It's like this is the only options I have, and now it's just I'm treating it as a group. But there's nothing in here that I can see that really makes it feel like I'm working on a header. I'm working on a group.
Yeah.
I don't see anything mobile. I don't see any hamburger buttons or anything. I'm just working on a group. And it's like, okay, so. No,
So
really neat.
I recommend Kadence Blocks. Use the header, the advanced header block with navigation blocks.
That was really,
I know it's a lot. It's a little complicated. By the way, if you go to the WordPress repository and go to Kadence Blocks, there's a couple of links that will spin up a playground session, preloading like the blocks, so you can experiment and play with it. Reminding people that the playground is basically a completely free instance of a WordPress that lives in your browser. Close your browser, it's gone, but at least for experimenting, it's great.
I'll show two. These will be kind of quick because I think these are pretty basic, but just another kind of core thing, I think, in terms of the free Kadence blocks. One I'm going to show is the text block. So I'm sorry, this is the advanced text block, and then the other one is the what's the other one I'm showing? Is the advanced heading? I forget what's. Yeah. So I'm sorry. Yes, these are all the advanced text blocks. So again, this is another weird WordPress thing. So the original WordPress core blocks has a heading block and then a paragraph block, which I think gets a little confusing sometimes because it's like, well, what is, I mean, a heading is basically, it's a tag, an HTML H1. So there's an H1 tag, or, if you ever do an outline or something, this is like your level 1, level 2, level 3, etc. And then there's a separate paragraph block. in Kadence, it's a little bit different because there's just the advanced text, and within the advanced text, you can say, what do I want? Do I want this to be a heading? Do I want it to be a paragraph? There's some other structural things you can do with it too. So it's just like the whole thing with the columns and the rows. In some ways, to me, just this fits my thinking better. It's just text. What do you want it to be? Heading or text, but it's all the same thing. So to me, WordPress is a little bit confusing. So so what can you do with the WordPress headings? We've probably seen this before. You can transform from a heading 1 to any of the different levels. But again, from a styling standpoint, not much. You can say, do I want, oops, sorry, this is the WordPress general one. Do I want it to be, subtitle? I can add a little bit of background color. I can change the text color if I want, et cetera, et cetera. Really minimal. And they've added a couple of different things in here. So yeah, if I want it to be a link, typography, you can do a bit here. The sizing thing, actually, I do like that. That's a fairly newish thing from WordPress core. And then borders and radius is also fairly new, but very limited. And same thing with the regular text block. It's pretty much 1-for-1 of what you can do with the heading. The Kadence advanced text block has the same kind of transformation thing. So I can say, do I want it to be an H1 through whatever? But now we get all these additional styling features. So for example, font size, very similar to WordPress's one. I can have my heading be extra large, 2x large, 3x large, however X large I want it to be, much more control of that. You can also do, gradients on the text. This one's gonna look a little bit weird because I can make it look kind of a cooler look. So it's fading from left to right. I can change, which way I want that to go, the order of that. Again, the key thing to me, it's just such a basic thing we still don't have in the regular WordPress blocks is setting for mobile devices. So on mobile, I don't want that to be that big. I want the font size to be, I don't know, whatever, let's just say 20 pixels or something. Just be able to set it at that granular level. Things like changing the case, et cetera, et cetera. Typography, especially when we talk about fonts. Let me switch this back to the desktop view. Fonts in particular, I'll pick on this one. Where is it under advanced settings? So font family, you have access to the full Google font library right here. So again, normally best practice is you do want to set your fonts at a theme level, so it goes everywhere. 1 or 2 fonts. You're not just throwing fonts all over the place. But if you need to, let's say this, just a one-off page or something like that, this gives you access to tons and tons of fonts. They've added something in WordPress. When was that? Last release or so, where you now can add fonts into your theme. But I don't remember. There's still some caveats around that too, from what I recall, that maybe not every theme supports that, or has to be a full site editing enabled theme. I forget the exact caveat of that, but this is just a much simpler way to change that. Again, if you want, here's some other kind of goofy things, but they make plugins for this, but if you don't need a plugin, let's say I want an icon next to this. So right here, I can say, all right, let's say this is a warning message or something. So I can put my warning box here, just like that. So, and I could change the size of it, the color of it, the padding, etc. Title for screen readers. I didn't even notice that. So, back to accessibility things. I think tooltip is a neat one too. So one of these guys, let me see. One of the other differences here is in the regular WordPress paragraph block. If you look at the kinds of things you can do, you can also do, you can change a piece of text into a footnote, or you can add a footnote, a highlight. All these are the kind of the basic options that you get. The Kadence one gives you some additional ones, but one that's kind of neat is this tooltip. So here you can see I have a new option in here called tooltips. So I can say this is my tooltip. I can place on the top or the bottom. I can have it linked to something. Let's say I want it to link to another page in my site. I'm just going to put that in there for now. So what happens is, as I hover over this, I think I may have to actually save it first. Let me save it and look at it in the preview. It's going to create a nice little pop-up tooltip. Again, maybe from a accessibility standpoint, maybe not the greatest thing, but there we go. Just like that. I don't need another plugin to do that. I mean, silly things that may be silly, but this may be the one feature somebody gives you that you're like, I really need that silly typed text thing. So yeah, just whatever, keep it like this. I'm gonna save this, and then I think I have to look at it again. Sometimes it doesn't seem to refresh well in the, there you go. It's like a typewriter effect over and over again. But you know,
Don't do
but you don't need I think the neat thing is you don't need another plugin to do this. Like I
Right.
said, this is built into the block. You don't need to do their CSS. I remember old sites, I had to find a CSS that, you know, snippet of code that let me do this. Here it's just built in. So all this additional stuff, again, advanced, you know, we talk about padding, et cetera, et cetera. So it looks like a simple kind of block, but all these little features that you get out of it. Oh, and the other one, let me show you the highlighting too, is kind of neat. So they give you this advanced highlighting. So I think regular WordPress has, like, let's say I want to highlight half of a piece of text. I think we already have this in WordPress, just a plain old highlight, you know, kind of simple. I can change color for half of that text. Advanced highlight, I believe. Let me just turn it off for a second. I think advanced highlight lets me do, just gives me more control. So under advanced highlight, where is it? Under, it should give me another option under advanced highlight. 1 second. Oops, sorry, I keep flipping on and off. Is it under advanced? There was another setting in here. Maybe I'm missing it under styling where, oh, here we go, advanced highlight settings. You get a whole additional drop down here. So let's say I want to make it that, you know, gradient and this and that, just for that little advanced piece. Again,
So
1%
by the
of the
way,
time you need it, but go ahead, Peter.
so two things, Ray. One is whenever we do this, I think of Judith Ann in one of our first meetups when Judith Ann was asking about coloring headings and things like that and being able to do stuff. And now the power of doing it. The other thing I just wanted to make sure that I shared that I use, advanced text is phenomenal, including now they have AI tied to it. If you've connected it and stuff like that, you can write stuff. You can have the content be edited by AI. But the thing I've always used it most for is in accessibility. When you're using headings, the whole headings are supposed to be used in order to basically format a document properly, or to semantically organize. So an H2 is above an H3 is above an H4 and all things like that. Very often people use the headings for styling purposes. I want big text here. So now it's all of a sudden it's an H1 versus with advanced text, you make it a div, not a paragraph, not a heading, but a div. And then you can style it any way you want. And it doesn't become an actual heading that is for organization, but rather for style. You can have a piece of text that you can make 200 point size if you wanted, just to highlight something, but it isn't necessarily a heading. It is large text. So being able to, when you were in heading and your choices were H1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, well, you have I don't even think you have 1 because the title is 1. They understand accessibility and how to use it. And then it goes paragraph, div, span, which are different ways of wrapping text and having control of where it is.
One thing that before I forget it, Peter, is he said, I just noticed this because I haven't looked that closely into it, but you know, so the way I constructed this thing, like I said, I have headings 1 through 3 here that are the WordPress heading blocks.
Yep.
And then I have my advanced text headings 1 through 3, and then the paragraph. When I look at the HTML, it is H1, H2, H3, and then down here, H1, H2, H3. But in the WordPress outline view, it's only showing me the WordPress one. It's not showing me the Kadence one. So that's a little gotcha if you're using this. So that would be one.
Yeah, 100% I've found that. And I've experimented with other block packages, and that outline only pays attention to core heading blocks and ignores any other use of headings. And of course, if you have patterns and blocks where you have all that kind of stuff, you may be using headings and all where it's an important point to show. The other thing would be then, they never made it into core. I don't think there was a table of contents block, but there is Kadence has a table of contents block that reads all the headings regardless of where they are, and will make you a table of contents based on that. So that's kind of a neat thing.
But, so again, advanced headings, advanced text. In a lot of cases, I just use those as if I have the Kadence blocks installed, I just tend to use those all the time. Just because even if I don't necessarily need those other things, I'd rather have it there than have to go back later and say, oh yeah, let me find this thing. So to me, those are such powerful basic things. And I go back to most of those features in advanced text have been there since 3 years ago when Cadence first came out. It's like now that's why you look at kind of the WordPress stuff now, you're like, oh, it has these things. Well, it took years for it to get there, which is kind of ridiculous. So
what's also nice, important to remember too, is that say if you wrote content in in Word or Google Doc or something like that, and pasted it in, everything comes in, say, as a paragraph, or it might come in headings if you use headings in Word or use headings in Google Docs and all. But you can transform those to advanced text also. So that transform feature is very handy. And I think under realized by a lot of people how much you can do with just going to a block and saying, what else can this block turn into?
Right. So the way you do that here is if you click on heading, you can say exactly. So once you have the Kadence blocks in here, it'll say, oh, here's that they get included as part of that transformation. So it's like exactly
Turn this into that kind of thing.
Sometimes I think when you do transform, one thing to be careful though is you can lose the styling. So maybe there's styling just applied to the old block type maybe doesn't come across. Like I think this would just reset it. So that's something to be aware of.
Definitely a concern, but like that idea too, like you have a bunch of paragraphs and go, oh, I want to bullet them. You transform a bunch of paragraphs into a bullet. Or if you got a bullet list now you want to break down, right? I just did that in something else. I have a whole list of all the blocks.
Can I show a quick, oh, sorry, Peter. Can I show a quick bonus one since I think we're almost coming out of time? And then if there's any other blocks people want to see from Kadence, but let me show one that I was playing around with this morning because this one is now part of the free Kadence blocks, and you probably know this as well, Peter. This is the YouTube player block. So this is another kind of neat one too. So let me just show you the difference of, in core WordPress, there's a YouTube embed block, which is again pretty basic, but it's okay. I mean, it works pretty nicely. So I put one of our last YouTube video in here. So the only settings you have in WordPress is, I think when you first drop the block in, it lets you put in puts in the URL, puts it as an embed, and then styling wise, you don't really have a lot of styling to it. I think you can just set the margins. So what this looks like is, let me open this up in another page. So here's the core one, and again, you press, if you look at this already, you have watch on YouTube. I press play. And when I pause it, hey, this is all of us from last month. You get these other things on here. So things you probably don't care about. Like I won't even talk about some of them. There's things you don't care about because it's YouTube's algorithm. So you're like, people get distracted and they go off to look at other junk. What's neat about the WordPress, the Kadence one is they've included this now in the free version of Kadence is this video pop-up. So it works for both YouTube, Vimeo, I don't know what VideoPress is, but you drop the URL in there. This is really neat. Embed it with no cookies. So from a tracking standpoint, it's gonna lose that whole piece. Autoplay if able. The other neat thing too is you can set the image. So I just happen to it's the same one that we use, but I set a static image. You can change this to be anything. Especially if you have a YouTube video where there isn't a thumbnail for it, you can create one here just for your site. Change all this stuff. You can also change the video max size, et cetera, et cetera. But let me show you what this thing looks like. So here's the difference. It's nice kind of rounded corners. I think that's the default styling. And when I play this, it opens up kind of just distraction free. I'll pause it there. So you can see the background kind of got a little bit dark around here. You can change this color as well too. The nice thing is it's a pretty simple controller, nice clean looking controller. I paused it. I don't get that other junk, underneath here. I think these are our videos and they're showing underneath there. So that's great. It's free. And I think they just added that in last week.
Brand new. I haven't even tried it. And that image, being able to put the image, not only does it give you the option, I'm going to bet it improves performance. So in other words, it's not going out to YouTube to grab everything to then bring it in. It's just going to say, here it is. And then once you click on it, then it loads the video, which is
Right. And especially if you think about if you're linking to maybe somebody else's video or something, you don't have control over what thumbnail they put on there, but you can now on your site say, here, put some other nicer image or whatever you want on there. You have a bit more control over it. So there's a ton of those. Like I said, we didn't even get into the. I'll show real quick, and again, we can. I know
while you do that, Judith Ann was asking about embedding a PDF. That's still out of core, still just opens up PDF in a window, and you have a lot of the controls in it, like printing and zooming in and things like that. There are PDF plugins, but Kadence doesn't have anything particular for embedding that. I have a client that really wanted the flipbook kind of thing, and there's a plugin I found that has a free version for doing that kind of thing where you get the whole page turning, but that they're also putting the PDF is a full design brochure that they really wanted the whole thing to show.
I'll tell you
what do you got, Ray?
And again, we can do this other times too, because we don't have a lot of time left. But just some of the core ones that come here, the ones that I've used personally, I've used countdowns, count ups. I mean, what's cool too is you hover over this and you can see it's showing me an example of this. So again, a countdown timer. That's just a neat thing. And the Google Maps plugin is really nice. That's another one rather than just copying and pasting HTML code and messing around with the sizing. That's a nice free one to pop in there. And then the icon ones too. Where is that one? I've used that quite a bit too. I mean, icons just yeah. And sorry, what's one last one I used? I just saw it a second ago.
I haven't used the advanced search much. I want to experiment with that one next.
Yeah, I used that one. I think it was like the info box, one of those other ones. Oh, and the icon lists, those are kind of nice too. So there's a lot of stuff that, and for people who come from a page builder like Divi World or Elementor, all of those kind of, at least to me, a lot of functionality that I needed my page builder for, it's there now is like core blocks. So it's just extremely powerful and free. You can't beat the price, any other I didn't see any questions in the chat, but any other, I think you covered the two that you were going to do, Peter, right? You did the navigation header. Those are really neat too. I think that's powerful.
That's going to just take some experimenting. You got to get used, like playing around with it. And what's nice is you can play around with it and have it affect nothing. Just because it literally is like a custom post type. That you can bring into places. So I was really impressed in a short period of time because I hadn't used it until getting ready for this. Well, I was like, oh, wow, I knew what the concept behind it.
Let me show, let me read this sort of the final thing. Where was Kadence WP? So back just real quick. So ton of stuff you get for free, so why would you pay? The theme is great, but like, okay, what's the catch? Well, the pro stuff, I mean, AI, that's a big thing. They're pushing a lot more AI stuff in their design libraries. There's some really neat features that I think are probably more tied. In fact, you probably use them a lot more than I do, Peter. I know you do. Like the cloud library thing is really neat, right? Can you talk about that just for a second of what that is?
Yeah, I mean, real quick, basically you can build patterns and save them up to the cloud, and then if you have other websites, you have a security key, a key to be able to get into that, and now you can just go to your own personal created library of things that you've created from any website where you're connecting to that has Kadence. So and you can share, which is really cool. So that it's just an opportunity to be able to say, hey, I've created my own library of things that I really like. So you can just put them in a place where you go grab it and pull it down. So that's really handy. The whole dynamic content thing becomes very powerful. I think one of the most powerful things for me is in Kadence theme. If you go to the pro version, you have this thing called elements, where basically you can make a box and put it pretty much anywhere, conditionally, this page, that page.
Even,
it really, you have absolute control over where and what places go, because once you put that thing in that box, whatever you build there, you know, go in the sidebar, go in the header, go in the footer. It could pop. It's an element that can be called upon in any way that you want. So very, very handy.
So hopefully gave everyone some things to think about and try. Like I said, it's try it out. I do think to be honest, I need to go back to a couple of sites where I probably had other plugins that now I look at this stuff, I'm like, I don't think I need that other plugin. I think there's a cadence block, if I ever have the time to go back and clean things up, which I never do. I really should, because plugin bloat is a real thing. And it's nice having them all, the consistency too, I think, of having them all as blocks as opposed to another plugin, which you don't know if someone's maintaining or not. This one, that's another final thing. They maintain this thing all the time, which is great. They really do put out updates all the time, very active. So I definitely appreciate that. Just like appreciate all of you coming to our meetup here today.
I was going to say, the irony about you saying that is like just today, and go back to the beginning of this meetup where bricks was brought up, and people are very dedicated to what they're very dedicated to. So even when they say, "Oh, what about Kadence as a thing?" Oh, they don't put out anything. It takes them forever. I'm like, are you kidding me? I don't know, but it's a matter of perspective, and also keep an open mind. We're again, we don't have any. We're not putting an affiliate link anywhere or anything like that. It's worked for us, and I like the team, and I like what they're doing, and I like how they're easing into full site editing in a way that's gonna, work well. So.
And with that, I think we'll call it a wrap. So thanks everyone again. First meetup of January. Hope to see you again next month, where we'll have a new exciting topic, I'm sure. All right, stay warm, everyone. Have a good night.
Yeah, stay warm. Good night. Bye.